And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did cry out for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewed across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Plz. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. The date today is the 24th of April, 2009. It is 8 p.m. in the British Isles. It is 3 p.m. EST. It is other times in other places. And this is Blue Plz. Welcome. Well, what a show we have for you coming up today. I love it when Blizzard releases content. Isn't it awesome? I get to talk about things that are new and exciting and I might not be horribly pessimistic about. Although I think there will be some pessimism coming up in this particular show. You know, we've had a week or so. Patch has settled in. We've got past the initial varnish and sparkle of Ulduar and we can get down to dissecting it in gritty, gory detail. Although in reality I must say that I haven't found much, or actually anything, really to complain about so far in the instance, but I'm sure I can dig something up as we go through. Now, what have we got coming up in the show for you today? Algalol, or as I will be calling it for the rest of the show, Algalol. Algalol and his 1 hour spawn time. It's going to be awesome, because the tiers, there is a river of them. And they're mostly coming, in fact, actually, no, they're all coming from the US forums, which makes it even more hilarious, because those guys are really overly emotional. Now, we've got the EU forums, we've got the US forums, yeah? The EU forums is full of bleeding hearts that can't spell, and the US forums is full of angry bleeding hearts that can't spell. So, as you can see, there's a very big distinction there between US and EU. Very big. Also, ongoing nerfs to Ulduar. Ulduar has been nerfed several times. However, the hard modes have been buffed. Is this an acceptable situation? We'll look into that a little bit later in the show. Also, the Vault of Archivon. People wanted as separate instances. I give them some advice. Specifically, stop pugging it, noobs. And perhaps, if you're really having issues with it, you should start using the puggable loot system. That'll be coming a little bit later on in the show. Also, we'll be announcing the winners of our contest to win a copy of Arthas Rise of the Lich King, which is, I assume, about Arthas and his Lich King Rising. It's not really the same as, say, bread making for the Baker class, whose petition you should have signed by now, and if you have not, then go to petitiononline.com/baker123/petition.html. Screw Rise of the Lich King, try Rise of the Panini. Go and get it. We've got 558 people that support the Baker as the new hero class. Join the army of the bread. Go sign up. It's mostly to prove a point. I'm not entirely sure what that point is. I just like wasting people's time. Speaking of wasting people's time, just get all of this stuff out of the way. If you want to email me today, particularly for the illusion of choice. Yes, that's the time of the show where you get to pick the last 15 minutes of topic, assuming you submit something that's half decent. If you don't, well, I just tend to ignore you. If it's really bad, I mock you. Like the guy's just like, Blizzard should support my country and let me do this and this and this. Like, yeah, because Blizzard really hates your money. They don't want your money. They don't like your evil, dirty European... Wait, hang on, that's all the same currency mostly, isn't it? Oh, never mind. Yeah, they hate that kind of money. They just want to spite you. Not your country, specifically you. They're out to get you. Nobody else, just you. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Yes, people email that in all the time, and it really gets on my nerves, because, like, why on earth would you email in a topic that you see me, like, every day flaming on the European forums? And indeed, is actually part of my How to Win Threads and Influence People thread, which I must say also got linked on the front page of wow-europe.com. This is the funniest thing. Blizzard linked my thread, and my thread was basically 5,000 words endorsing trolling. But it was written in such a way that it was not immediately obvious, and it got posted on the front page of WowEurope.com. So, thanks, Blizz. You've endorsed my post, which endorses trolling. Awesome. I can now go troll with impunity, because you've basically said that everything I said in that thread was okay. So okay, in fact, that it got to the front page. Awesome. If you want to keep up with my silly musings, you can do so on blueplease.blogspot.com. Various articles there, and twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. Now, I think we've had quite enough of me plugging me, so let's plug something else in the form of this.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
Oh, it never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it's mail time, and I've got a great mail because this one consists of crying, and crying is always funny. Not entirely surprisingly, it was posted on the US forums, as most crying tends to be. So let's have a look at this. Tristan Johnson made me aware of this particular email, and it goes something along the lines of this. You knew this was coming. Here's a forum complaint that Ulduar is too hard. And last week I read out a complaint thread and did it in a whiny accent. I have no intention of doing that this time because I think I killed several of my listeners in the process. Probably not a great idea. I do like having listeners, and as pseudo-funny as that is, well, no. The funniest thing about this entire thing is that this thread is 25 pages long. You know, the Americans do everything bigger. They really do. Including their whining threads. There are more tiers. And the thread goes something like this. Blizzard, I think you are simply an amazing company that produces incredible games. Oh, great, that's a great way to start. Lick a few feet. Kiss a bit of ass there to get your point across more effectively. That'll work. This is not a QQ thread at all. Yes, it really is. But rather some feedback I wanted to share on the latest raid instance that was recently implemented in the game. Ulduar. Yes, Ulduar. With 2 A's. For the second week in a row, my raid team and I have entered this instance and had enormous difficulty managing to get the first few bosses even to halfway health. Flame Leviathan excluded, he has been an easy and fun kill. Yeah, Flame Leviathan with no towers up is mind-blowingly easy. Like, I can't see how you could possibly fail. Anyway, he goes on. Last night, for example, the trash surrounding XT practically hindered any chance we had at defeating him. Oh, my God. And raise the scale, we were looking to get 1 or 2 turrets attached to him. Right, I don't get this. How is it possible for someone to get 25 people together and not get 1 or 2 harpoons fired? You know how long that takes? Like a minute. Yeah? It takes about a minute to get 1 or 2 harpoons loaded. Yeah? Maybe a minute and a half. Are you telling me, seriously, that you cannot tank the mobs for a minute and a half without dying? In a 25-man. And I assume this guy's doing 25-mans. I don't know, I haven't had a look at his terrible guild. I will load it up, and the armory will probably be loaded sometime before the end of the show. Anyway, I remember Nax having its share of difficulty in the beginning. But no, you don't. It never had. I knew the dungeon was playable after we got the boss strats down. I don't think I can say the same for Ulduar. So far, I'm wasting hard-earned gold on daily repairs. Hard. It's so hard to get gold these days, isn't it? Doing daily quests for tons of money. I'll tell you when it was hard to get gold. Try vanilla. Yeah? Try this. You want hard Nax? Try a Nax where you had to buy like 3 shadow protection potions, greater shadow protection potions no less, per attempt for lower Theb. Per person, per attempt. Now you tell me now that getting money for Nax and raiding in Wrath is difficult. There were no daily quests back then. Absolutely not. You couldn't have Death Knights farm all your freaking herbs for you. God. Now that was difficult. You didn't even get the money bonus for being level 60 and completing quests then. It was horrendous. You had to basically grind into his hand for like 3 hours. I'm not angry or upset. I know you guys implement everything for a reason, but I felt like I should give my honest opinion, because after speaking to a few people, I'm pretty sure I'm not alone with this viewpoint. Blizzard fan for life. BFF? Guys, BFF? I mean, where to begin with this? Okay, I can understand people getting hindered, at least in the first few attempts, on the trash before XT on 25-man. Because the trash before XT on 25-man is a shock to the system. You want to know why it's a shock to the system? Because that's how proper trash feels. Cthulhu trash, some of the Blackwing Lair packs, some of the old stuff in Nax. That's how real trash feels. Trash in Mount Hyjal. Trash in Sunwell. That's how real trash feels. Trash is supposed to be a challenge as opposed to just being a minor time roadblock. A minor time roadblock is boring. You don't have to focus. You just face roll it. How is that fun in any respect? I mean, trash is never really all that enjoyable. That's the thing about trash. It is designed to artificially lengthen the instance, but it does exist for a reason. Which is, of course, to artificially lengthen the instance. And it's better if it's challenging, because then you at least have to be awake, and some trash is kind of fun. AoEing everything down isn't fun. You can't do that. You cannot face roll over that trash anymore. You can't do it with Ignis either. Ignis trash is actually challenging. But sorry, I'm sorry, if you can't get 1 or 2 harpoons attached to Razor Scale, you're freaking terrible. I mean, you are an absolutely awful player. I can't think of any better explanation. It's just tanking mobs. How hard is that? Ugh. It's pretty pathetic if you ask me. I cannot fathom why this would be an issue. Now, yeah, Ulduar is harder than Nax. You know, this is one of the problems I had with introducing people to raiding via Nax, because they get this mistaken belief that everything's supposed to be really easy. It's not. It was never supposed to be really easy. This is the introduction to raiding? Yeah, well, here's the real raiding. It's not as hard as some of the stuff that's come before, but it's pretty challenging and it scales well. Now, why exactly are you complaining about that? I mean, what really gets me is, like, I remember Nax having its share of difficulty in the beginning, but deep down I knew the dungeon was playable after we got the boss strats down. That's every raid dungeon! Every dungeon is playable after you get the boss strats down. That's the entire point. You're supposed to learn the boss strategies. You're supposed to get your execution right. Otherwise, how the hell are you supposed to kill anything? I understand that strategies weren't needed in Nax. All you needed to do was bang on the DPS button. AoE the trash all the freaking time. Because there was nothing else to do. That's all it involved. Now, you'd have thought that maybe people would have learned a few lessons from Malagos and Sarth plus Drakes, but the things I don't think these people have done either. I can't prove it, because my armory won't load to see whether or not he's got that bloody achievement, but I would put money on this guy not having actually killed any of these. Funnily enough, according to the army, he's not even in this guild. Which is relatively amusing, I must say. But I will check one of their level 80s. There's a level 80 paladin of... so level 80 druid here, rank 8. He must be on their raids. Let's see what he's done. He's got tons of achievement points. Let's see if they've killed anything. Now, the name of this guild is Raiders of Dalost Taint, which is a terrible guild name. Let's face it, it's freaking awful. Let's see what he's done. Let's go check it out on the army. Let's spy on people and invade their WoW privacy. Well, the amusing thing is, this guy's got Champion of the Frozen Wastes, Northrend Dungeon Master, and Northrend Dungeon Hero. Has he got anything to do with raiding? Well, let's find out. Lich King Heroic Raids. Fall of Naxxramas, yes. Killed Sapphiron with 1 Drake. And he hasn't killed Malagos. Oh my god. Yes! I'm sorry, but your guild sucks. You've killed Sartharion with no Drakes. Oh, that's really difficult. You've got like half the achievements for Nax. Not that that really matters anyway. You haven't killed Malagos, and you expected to go into Ulduar. You haven't finished the current content! Why do you think it's hard? Because your guild's too terrible to finish the content. I'm not even talking about optional fights here like Sartharian +3. I'm talking about Malagos, which is like a normal boss, and you haven't killed that. You're wondering, why are you going into Ulduar? Please explain this to me. Why on earth would you do such a thing? I understand that it's shiny and new, but you're too terrible to beat Malagos. Why do you think you're going to be good enough to kill anything harder? It's just common sense, more than anything. Yeah, go kill the Flame Leviathan for some free epics. That's what a lot of stuff used to be like. You could, roll yourself into Mount Hyjal and kill Rage Winterlol, who was full of loot. Or you could go kill, say, Anubrakan and Instructor Vesuvius, which were easy bosses in Old Nax, yeah? And Guild Still Wiping and Blackwing Lair went and did that, because it was an easy source of epics. Yeah, go to Flame Leviathan, but why are you trying something harder when you haven't beaten the stuff before it? I can't figure that out. Why would you do such a thing? So yeah, seriously. The problem here does not lie with the instance. The problem lies with the people trying to do it. Because they shouldn't be. They think they have this entitlement to go into these instances and just roll over them. No, you don't. If you want to go in, that's fine. You have the right to do so. Removing achievements... removing attunements... I wish they'd remove achievements. Removing achievements actually allowed you to go into these things, yeah? And that's fine. You can go in, but don't expect to be handed your epics on a silver platter anymore. That is over and done with. And it better well stay that way. Because I just had 5 months of total fail, and people are geared out in the best epics for doing nothing other than rolling their face across the keyboard, which I would like to simulate if I knew it wouldn't Alt F4 my Sam broadcast program. You listen to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I'll be right back after this to talk about Algalol and the River of Tears. This band goes by the name of Torture. It's my good friend Nick Hugot from Swag Show and Gaming Nights podcast. It's his thrash band. Go check him out on myspace.com/tortureband. This is Ignominious Slaughter. Ignominious Slaughter? I don't know. It's great. Enjoy. Yes, indeed, folks. Torture with Ignominious Slaughter. A wonderful song. I'm not even that big a thrash fan, but these guys are great. Go check them out. myspace.com/tortureband. And that's Nick Huget is on the lyrics there, the vocals, and I believe he hosts The Swag Show, which can be found on YouTube. One of the only gaming shows I actually watch on YouTube. Generally speaking, YouTube has really bad gaming content and stuff like that, but these guys do some great stuff, and they've got some big industry people on there all the time for reviews. If you cannot find it, you can go check out my subscriptions on my page. That's Total Halibut on YouTube, and you'll be able to find The Swag Show there. It's good. It's very good. We like it. This is Blue Plz. This is WoW Radio on WCRadio.com, and my name is TotalBiscuit. And if this is the first time you've tuned into Blue Plz, well, this show is mostly about endgame. Mostly. Not always, but mostly. And to that end, I would like to announce a month of evenings with Uber Guilds. The first one of these is going to be going on tomorrow. Pug will be airing tomorrow for a special episode with Mech and Poptis of Insidia, the world's top guild at this present time. We'll be having a lot of fun with them. It's a nice, kicked, laid-back show. We have Cadwallian on there as well from Wild Things Considered, our other raid-related show, who will be co-hosting with me. It's all been pre-recorded, so it'll definitely air tomorrow. We've got the Master Looter Quiz Show, where we demonstrate just how little Insidia actually knows about World of Warcraft. It is quite amazing. We even themed the questions to, like, raids this time. They still got them all wrong. Oh well, never mind. So yeah, that'll be fun. Now, next week, I'm aiming to have the Legacy, or at least some representatives from the Legacy, on Blue Plz to do a little bit of an interview. The Legacy, for those who don't know, are one of the world's top 10 guilds. They also produced the first Yogg-Saron kill video, and they happen to be on my realm as well, so that's pretty awesome. I'll be talking to them about their history and their opinions on endgame raiding. And I am also talking to Inner Sanctum, one of the... You know, that is a really old Uber guild. I mean, they go back a long, long way. Inner Sanctum were one of the guys who produced the original guides for stuff like Molten Core. So it'll be great to have them on the show. We're in talks with them at the moment to get them on the show. And we'll also be looking at one of the big US guilds, which I'll be trying to grab a hold of in the next couple of weeks. So yes, a month of Uber guild interviews. For those interested in raiding, this is the perfect opportunity for you to see it from their perspective. And it is a very interesting and intriguing perspective, I must say. Right, now we're done with that, so let's get on with the show. You may be aware, of course, that Ulduar has 14 bosses, not 13. The 13th boss is Yogg-Saron, and Yogg-Saron is, of course, the guy who everyone was concerned about dying, and, of course, has already now died, but has not died on hard mode yet, by any stretch. There is one other boss in the instance, which is designed, and this goes all the way back to when Ulduar was initially announced. Yeah, the big features of Ulduar were the hard modes, and they also said we're going to put in one boss that is hard mode only, yeah? And it's going to be an optional encounter. And that optional encounter will only be able to be accessed once you've done all the other hard modes. Or at least most of the other hard modes. There's a set of hard modes you have to do to unlock it. And after that, then you can try it. And this guy's going to be hard. This guy's going to be a raid destroyer, quote unquote. This guy is going to feed on your tears, so says the achievement. This guy is going to be rock solid hard. We're looking at difficulty along the lines of maybe pre-nerf Muru. Way, way ahead of Sartharian 3 Drakes. Way harder than everything we've seen so far. At least in Wrath of the Lich King, at any rate. And that sounded pretty good to me. I enjoyed that prospect. We're probably not going to get to him for a long time. But when we do get there, it's going to be a great fight. He goes by the name of Alganon. And henceforth, I'll be calling him Algalol. For various reasons. Mainly because I actually have issues pronouncing Alganon. I don't know why. Oh well. So, this boss, I'm not entirely sure of the lore behind it. He's some kind of like messenger to the Titans or something like that. And he's like made entirely of energy and stars, which is pretty cool. He looks like a constellation. If you can remember the old pictures you used to see when you were a kid looking at astronomy books and stuff like that at school. You remember the drawings around the constellations of Orion and stuff like that. And he's like a constellation, but he's a boss, and he fights, and he does all manner of different cool things. Now, you'd think, well, this probably isn't an issue, right? Well, why would anyone care? Yeah, it's an optional encounter, so, yeah, it's cool. That's fine. No one's going to complain about that, right? It's optional. No. You would, of course, be wrong. Horribly wrong, in fact. Because they decided to implement another mechanic. And people didn't realise this until they got there. And that was, you get to fight him for an hour per week reset. Yes, an hour per week. He despawns after an hour, and you can't fight him again. It's pretty intense. The crying. Oh, the crying. You have no idea. I'm going to look up the crying for you right now. I'm going to find this thread so that you can have a look at it. The crying is incredible. You have never seen crying this ridiculous. There is a thread on the US forums. It is massive. It is filled with crying. It is hilarious. If I can find it. It's around here somewhere. Now, the point of this whole crying and the QQ was that, this is a stupid change. And no one could really come up with a very good reason for that. That's it. Here it is. The thread, unsurprisingly, is on the worldofwarcraft.com forums. I'll have it posted in the IRC channel. If you are not already there, I suggest you be there. IRC.MMOIRC.com, # WOW Radio, or use the chat button on the top of the screen on WCRadio.com. It's the easiest way to get there. I'm having the IRC rep. My new IRC rep today is Davlin, incidentally, so welcome to him. And it's called Algalol only allows 1 hour of attempts. And it's a QQQ discussion. It is really ridiculous. It's like, the first one was like, oh, it feels like a cop-out. It's a cock block for bleeding-edge hardcores. A saviour for those who'll sacrifice too much time /work/family to try and down an encounter they aren't capable of. Well, they're probably not going to get there anyway, let's face it. But it gets worse and worse and worse as you go through this thread. The first page is relatively reasonable, and then it goes insane. It's like, Blizz go research SOV and learn how to make a proper expansion. I don't even know what SOV is. Is that City of Villains spelt with an S? What? Oh, good lord. It's horrible. This entire thread is horrendous. I can summarise the complaints, though. This is retarded because I think it is. That's pretty much how it goes. It's like, Blizzard couldn't make a boss that was hard enough, so they made one that was artificially cock-blocked. It's not. It's not blocked at all. That is not a block. You don't understand what that even means. Probably because most of the people complaining were never hardcore raiders to begin with. They joined in like TBC and started raiding after the 30% Karazhan nerf, and then thought they were all pro. Oh, we're going to go with Zolomar next week, it'll be awesome. Yeah, we're not going to do the timed run because we're not good enough, but we'll wipe on the first boss for hours with the 30% nerf. We're hardcore. Oh, they're terrible. Let me tell you, back in the day, back in vanilla, that was when real blocks were, yeah? Real blocks, like Cthulhu double I-beams that kill everybody. Try that for a block. Or how about Veilstraz that was bugged? Or Razorgore that was bugged? Or Ragnaros that was initially bugged? Those were blocks. As I recall, Twin Emps was also initially bugged. There's plenty of... Aura was bugged. Couldn't do anything with that either. It was all blocks. It was blocked by bugs. And it wasn't just overtuned. It was just broken. In every respect. It's not like it's hard. It's like, this is impossible. No one could actually beat this in its current form. That's a block, yeah? Letting you do a boss for 1 hour a week, that ain't a block. That's actually a pretty reasonable mechanic. It's been done before. In this very game, in fact, but in a slightly different way. Now, I ask you this. What is the difference between having a 1 hour despawn and having world bosses? What's the difference between the two? Yeah? Because either way, you've got a very limited amount of time to get it right. Yeah? World bosses had a mechanic which ensured that you could not just repeatedly wipe on them for hours. Yeah? If you died, you got a 15-minute debuff. Those are all the green dragons as well as Azuragus. I don't believe Kazakh had such a debuff. He might have. I can't remember. Basically meant you had to kill him, or you would lose the opportunity, possibly to another guild who were hanging around waiting for you to wipe. It was competition. You didn't get to kill that boss every week, and you had to be perfect in the execution when you did. Because you would be competing. In this case, you are competing with the clock. You are racing against time, as opposed to racing against other people. Funnily enough, the competitive edge of the World Dragons kind of made them the most PvP-est of PvE bosses. It's PvP in a different way. It's direct competition for a boss. Now this is that concept taken into an actual PvE instance. And it's not the first game to do it either. Final Fantasy XI, I believe, had a very similar mechanic. The avatars and the harder bosses in EverQuest and EverQuest 2 also had similar mechanics, where you had a limited amount of time to down it. Now, the fact of the matter is as well that this is an optional boss. As much as the rhetoric might say, hey, this is the true last boss, it's not. It's not the true last boss in a lore respect, by any stretch of the imagination. It's like saying Oro was the true last boss of AQ40. It wasn't. Cthulhu was. Oro was an optional boss. It was a detour as well. It's like it wasn't directly in front or behind, it was like to the side of Cthulhu. You had to go down like a completely different route to get to. Won't be the first boss that's done that either. Now, I suppose the complaining lies as to whether or not people actually believe this is the true last boss or not. To be honest, I don't really see why. It's like, oh, well, here's our justification for whining. It's not really an optional boss because it's the end of the instance, therefore we consider it to be the last boss. Yeah, well, you know what? Do you really want to have this instance on farm in a few weeks? I know I don't. And people are saying, oh, well, Blizzard can't design a difficult fight anymore. Algalol is a really difficult fight. Yoxeron is a difficult fight. There's a ton of difficult fights in Ulduar. It's like, can they design a fight, on the other hand, that can not be killed in a few days by the Uber Guild? Answer, no. You'll hear it. You will hear it on the show tomorrow, where Mech and Poptees tell us that there will never be another fight that Uber Guilds can't kill in like a few days. And if they can't kill it in a few days of normal wiping and attempts, it's bugged, yeah? It's blocked. Because there's only so difficult you can actually make a fight. It's about execution. If everyone executes perfectly, you win the fight. If they don't, you won't. You can't go beyond perfection, yeah? It's like there are some fights that demanded absolute perfection. Mora pre-nerf would be a prime example. Pre-nerf Archimon would be another prime example. Fights that demanded perfection from you. Algalol demands perfection. Now here's the thing. Attaining perfection is not done by spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours wiping. It's done by figuring out what the strategy is and executing it properly. Now, if that means that guilds have to really think things through instead of smashing their head against the content week after week, then that's fine. For me, this is a balancer. This is all of the people who whined that the only reason that these big guilds managed to kill these bosses so fast was because they were all on welfare and stayed in their basement 24/7 raiding. Here's your equalizer. We're throwing down the gauntlet, guys. You say you guys are good? You think, oh, well, I've got less time, but I'm just as good as these guys? Okay, prove it. And I'm not just talking about who gets the world first. I'm talking about how long it takes you from getting to Algalol to actually kill him. Because you're going to do him in 1 hour chunks per week. And if it takes you 6 months to kill Algalol, whereas from the first attempt of Insidia it takes them a month, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or whatever, then they are better than you. And it's not about the time. Uber Guilds are better than you. That is why they are at that stage. It helps that they're able to raid a lot, but they raid a lot because they're that good. They dedicate more time to it. It's like you're fantastic at football. Do you dedicate a lot of time to it? Of course you do. Because you're good at it. You want to dedicate time to it. You want to play it a lot. It's the same here. I don't understand the whining in the QQ. It's like, obviously this is going to be a hard boss. This isn't just a gimmick. They want it to be genuinely challenging in every respect, and they want it to take a while, and this is probably the only way it's going to take a while, when people can't bash their heads up against it. And the nice thing is, it's not going to involve guilds just like raiding 24/7, day in, day out. They're not going to have to do that. It's going to come purely down to how much skill they've got, and how well they execute the fight, because they'll have an hour window to do it, and they can chill for the rest of the week. Some of them might not like that. Some of them will. But I have to say that in that thread I have not seen a single solid good guild, like high-end guild, bleeding edge of any sort, complaining about it. I don't know, I haven't read EJ. Maybe some of you guys have read Elitist Jerks. Has there been complaining over there? Let me know by emailing themurloc@gmail.com or sending me a tweet on twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. I like to know whether or not the guys who can actually beat this encounter and who are actually at this encounter are whining about it, as opposed to the guys who haven't killed Malagos yet. That would be interesting to know. QQ for the sake of QQ, let me know. themorlock@gmail.com. Ladies and gents, you're listening to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I'll be right back after this with the announcement of who won the Arthas contest, and we'll also be talking about the ongoing nerfs to Ulduar and the buffs to the hard modes. Is this particular gap in difficulty an acceptable solution to catering to everybody? My name is TotalBiscuit, and you're listening to Blue Plz on WoW Radio. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you're tuning to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. Myself, TotalBiscuit, and I am the guy who cannot pronounce Algalol or whatever. That's just why I'm calling him Algalol, because it's easier to say. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that rubbish. Yes, Algalol. That's what it's called. Now, there is more QQing. Can you imagine? On the forums regarding the difficulty of Ulduar, but we're going to talk now about what's actually been changed as regards to Ulduar. But first, I think it's time to announce the winners of this contest. Those of you who were not aware, last week we announced a contest to rewrite the lore in a suitably terrible fashion. And, oh, you guys obliged. You really did. And the contest was to win one of 5 copies of Arthas Riders of the Lich King, which I believe is actually out today, which is great. So you'll be getting your copies if you win this relatively soon. So, here we go. I have 5 entries, and I'm going to announce the... Well, actually, no, I haven't got 5 entries. I've got 5 winners. I've got like 5,000 entries. And these are the 5 winners that I have picked. Yes, I had to spend hours trawling through this stuff. Oh, it's terrible. The first winner of the contest to rewrite the lore is Umamor of Bladefist US for his story about Arthas getting really upset and crying a lot over Stratum. It's really quite good. Bear in mind, all of these are getting made into radio skits later on. Second winner is the totally extended and messed up version of the Ascent to Icecrown by Hornshade Tauren, which actually involves Arthas meeting a GM on the way up, asking whether or not he'd looted his badges from Illidan or checked to see if the Blades of Azeroth had dropped. I like that. I think that was pretty cool. Next one. The next winner of the contest is Dark Crescent from Senjin US for his Warcraft Kindergarten thing, which is... I don't even know how far to go into that. It's there. It's crazy, but I like it. It's just a little bit disturbing. The next winner of the contest is Brad Gardner for his Breaking the Law story. And it is absolutely horrendous. It has the words Arthas poo in it, which is just... Ugh. And last but not least, final winner of a copy of Arthas Rise of the Lich King in our contest, consisting of a story which involves the Penguin of Time and Uber Cyber Ultra Kael'thas, is Alex Das. So well done. All of you win copies of Arthas Rise of the Lich King. Email me at TotalBiscuit@WCRadio.com with your addresses, and we'll get them shipped out to you, so well done. Right, time to get back into content, folks. Now, you may have noticed in the past couple of updates, there have been 2 updates since the launch of patch 3.1, that there have been various changes to certain elements of Ulduar. And the first change that I noticed, actually, was a nerf to the enrage timer of Razor Scale. And to be honest, being someone who actually beat Razor Scale pre-nerf, I don't really see that as being particularly necessary, particularly bearing in mind that Razor Scale is an optional encounter. Yeah, you don't need to kill him in order to get through to the main building of Ulduar. Now, for those who haven't been into Ulduar, you've got to understand this. This is the structure, yeah? You got your first element, which is the siege bit of Ulduar, yeah? Which involves you driving through in vehicles, killing everything, and then killing Flame Leviathan. You then get out of the vehicles, and you've got basically a straight run where you see XT002 Deconstructor, and he's guarding the doors to Ulduar. Now, to the left and the right of that, there is a Ignis the Furnace Master and Razor Scale, who are two optional boss encounters. They are not required in order to get into the main bit of Ulduar, but you can kill them anyway. Now, Razor Scale is less challenging than Ignis. Ignis is really quite hard. And XT002 is also quite hard, but they've nerfed him quite a bit. Now, the difference that I see between Razor Scale and XT002 is that killing XT is required to get onto the rest of Ulduar, yeah? That's where the big meat of Ulduar is. 10 of the 14 bosses of Ulduar are behind that door, yeah? So that's where the majority of the instance is. Killing Razor Scale is not required to do that. It is basically an optional encounter with no trash ahead of it, and you can just go straight into it after you've killed Flame Leviathan, and indeed, that's what a lot of guilds do. Now, we killed him when he had like a 6-minute enrage time, and now he's something like 10. So, since we managed it, one could assume that's certainly not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. But they did nerf it. Now, they also nerfed XT002 quite a bit. XT002 has been nerfed in a variety of different ways, including... Well, let me think. Yes, his enrage timer got nerfed in the last patch. He also now can't fire gravity bombs and light bombs while doing an ability called Tantrum, which is his big, oh, I kill everybody ability. And he also does less damage now with Gravity Bomb, which was also in the latest patch. So they've nerfed him on 3 separate occasions. They've also nerfed his trash once. Yes, he does have trash. He didn't have trash when they first implemented him, because there was a linking issue where both would pull. And that's a nightmare, don't get me wrong, because 25-man trash for XT is quite challenging. There's only 2 packs of it, but yeah, it'll get in your way. Just like the Ignis trash is pretty challenging as well. I like that. It's good fun. However... and this is the interesting thing. Now, of the 4 initial bosses, only 2 of them have hard modes. Flame Leviathan is one, and we know that Flame Leviathan actually has 4 separate hard modes. 1, 2, 3, and 4 towers up. Yeah? And it gets progressively harder. We actually did it with 2 towers up on 10 man, just because we were mucking about. And it took us a little bit of time to get it down, don't get me wrong. It's not easy. And I was happy to see that. 4 towers is going to be crazy, and I'm really looking forward to doing that one. Razor Scale doesn't have a hard mode. Neither does Ignis, but XT002 does. Now, they buffed XT002's hard mode, which is interesting, because they nerfed his main mode, which leads me to a conclusion. Bear in mind, they buffed a few other hard modes as well in the process. My conclusion is this. They're trying to create a very defined gap between hard modes and normal modes, because they want people to go and kill the normal modes if they just want to see the content, and the people who want the hard content get to do the hard modes. Now, this shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody, because they did claim this was what was going to happen from the start. They put this out there. Right, you guys want hard content? Okay, we'll give you hard modes, but we're not giving you an uber hard instance that only you guys can do, because we were upset that only 3% or so of people actually went into Sunwell and killed the boss. We're upset about that because that's a lot of development time for a very small minority. Now, personally, me being a raider, I have an obvious bias here. I'd usually say, well, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not your fault that people didn't see the content. It's the fault of the people playing the game. But, of course, there are counter-arguments to that, particularly bearing in mind that, WoW is a very casual game in comparison to most. And by most, I mean MMOs, of course. Very casual friendly. So, you can't really design something that is rock-solid hard, as in, this is harder than, like, any raid content ever. It's like Final Fantasy XI raid content hard. It's like AQ2 raid content hard. It is some of the hardest raid content ever designed in an MMORPG. If you go and do that, then people are going to complain. It's like, well, why aren't you developing content for me? Now, of course, my counter-argument to that has always been, you ain't beaten everything yet, you've still got content. These guys don't. So, keeping them playing is quite important, because, of course, there is a knock-on effect. Because if those guys start quitting, and then the next guys start quitting, you actually degenerate the quality of the player base, and that's bad for everybody. Because you don't want to play with idiots, and you've already got quite enough as it is, without getting rid of all of these good guilds who are there to actually show people how to do it, and hopefully inspire people to play well. So whether or not that's an ideal option, I don't know. The problem that I've got with this is that they're not being consistent. Yeah, the Razor Scale and XT comparison is what I would like to refer to. Razor Scale is an optional boss encounter. Yeah? Thereby, why exactly do we have to nerf it? For what reason? If people can't kill Razor Scale, that's really not a big deal. If they want to see a big chunk of Ulduar, then all they have to do is kill XT. Okay, I can understand nerfing XT, because XT's in the way of going into the rest of the instance, yeah? And a lot of the really cool stuff is inside. That's where a lot of the big artwork is. That's where a lot of the cool textures are. Outside's okay, don't get me wrong, but it's basically just towers and bricks. It's not that great, looks-wise. Inside of Ulduar, that's where the really cool stuff happens. You see that thing on the loading screen? Yeah, stuff like that. Shiny things. You've seen all the screenshots. Most of the screenshots, the promo stuff, was inside of Ulduar. That's where all the cool stuff is. It's where all the really neat areas are. So yes, you want your people to see that. But Razor Scale? Why nerf him? Razor Scale was killable. And if you can't kill it, then just don't do it. I mean, Ignis is still hard. It's been nerfed slightly, but it's still hard. Ignis is a really tricky encounter. It's funny, because it really shouldn't be. If you look at the description of the encounter, it's not that crazy. But we went and did it in 10-man, and it was challenging. It was really challenging. I can't imagine how challenging it's going to be in 25 when we choose to do it. We're ignoring him for the time being because we're going through and dealing with everything past there. You know, we're going for Thorim, Iron Council, Freya, all that good stuff that's behind there. We're going to go give that a shot. We'll come back and do Ignis later. But that's the thing. We can do that. And I have no problems with him being hard, because we're not going to have to wipe on him for a week or so in order to get to the boss after that. We can just ignore him and go on. And that's certainly not non-linear. It's just there's some bosses that are optional. You don't have to do them. So why nerf it? I don't get it. I can't figure it out. I think, to be honest, it's a slightly knee-jerk reaction. And I'm not sure that Blizzard are really on the same page as with each other as regards to how they want to pull this off. Yeah, I seem to be getting the impression that they want to buff the hard modes, make the hard modes hard, make the hard modes challenging for the vast majority of the really good guilds. I mean, the really, really, really good guilds, as in the total Bleeding Edge, have already beaten most of the hard modes. Although they're going to have some issues with Yogg-Saron. You'll hear a little bit about that fight on tomorrow's Pug with Insidia. Trust me, you want to hear that. But they want to make it challenging for the vast majority of the good guilds, because that's what the hard mods are designed for. The good guilds. That's what Sotharian 3 Drakes was made for. The good guilds. Something to do. Wasn't enough, but now we've got all this stuff, and now it is enough. So I don't know. I can't figure out why they would do that. I think it is a little bit of a knee-jerk, and it's unfortunate that they feel like doing that. Now, should we nerf Ulduar? It's tricky, because again, I'm biased. Yeah? I am very biased when it comes to this kind of thing, because I am a hardcore raider at heart. I've done all the hard content. Yeah? The only thing that I missed out on, which I'm still kicking myself to this very day, was Sunwell. I quit WoW. I quit WoW like 9 months before Wrath came out, as I just wasn't having any fun in it anymore. I was having issues with guilds and all that kind of thing. I never really got to do Sunwell pre-nerf, and I was looking forward to doing that. But, you know, stuff happens. You move on, you live with it. I would like to see a lot of people do Ulduar and at least get... They don't have to beat it, but they've got to get at least far enough into it to experience what raiding is like. But when it comes to me, I'm like, well, it should be hard, and we should be wiped, because this is what it was like in old school. I remember when we killed XT002 last week for the first time. That was actually a genuine celebration. I haven't heard that in a long time. Long time. Hard encounter. Great. Awesome. Hard encounter. Finally. Brilliant. There's some more coming up. But I suppose with these hard modes, there really isn't that much of an excuse to make the encounters uber hard from the outset. Because one, you then have to step it up, which is going to be pretty tricky to begin with. Without, of course, making a block encounter that no one can deal with. And you want people to see the content. So I suppose in that respect, hard mode is a reasonable compromise. I had my doubts, don't get me wrong. But having done a couple of the hard modes, particularly now having done... We attempted the 10-man hard mode of XT002, and that was hard. We're looking forward to hopefully killing it next week on hard mode. That'll be great fun. We also did a hard mode with Flame Leviathan. And that was good as well. That actually added a lot of different elements to the fight. It wasn't just a gimmick. It made the fight a lot more fun. So, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Although I would guard specifically against, this is a warning to any Blizzard staff that are listening. I really would be a little bit cautious with how much you cave into people, because some of this stuff can be seen as caving. People did complain about Razor Scales in Rage Timer. They did complain about XT in Rage Timer. Yes, they are strict, don't get me wrong, but you've got to distinguish between BS mechanics like throwing bombs during Tantrum. Yeah, that's a BS mechanic. Yeah, don't like that. That's just a gimmick. That's a horrible, horrible gimmick. As opposed to nerfing the Enrage Timer, which is not a gimmick, because the Enrage Timer was fair. It was a good, solid Enrage Timer. There was nothing wrong with it. You didn't need to particularly balance your group. You just had to have a kind of normal spread of people, and you had to have people doing efficient DPS. What's wrong with that? And not get any of the little scrap bots there. That's the way you're supposed to do the fight. Allowing people to make so many mistakes and slack is not a good thing, because they're just going to get punished later on. And it can have a knock-on effect. It can be a slippery slope. If you nerf the early stuff, and people run into stuff that's then harder later on, they're going to whine for more nerfs, and it's going to keep happening. So do be careful. Distinguish between optional bosses and not-so-optional bosses. Distinguish between BS mechanics and just plain difficulty and challenge. It's important that that happens. You listen to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio about the self TotalBiscuit. I'll be right back after this break. We're talking about VOA. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you're tuning to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. VOA! Oh, dear. We'll get into that momentarily. I've got a couple of emails to read first before I do so. Everyone knows VOA is like a hot-button topic with me, so yes, you can expect some unpleasantness coming up a little bit later. By a little bit later, I mean the next couple of minutes. I do have a couple of emails that I would like to read out before we do get on with this. Funnily enough, I've got someone asking me for my take on it. Hey, it's like, hey, TB, this is Radani from Thor... I can't pronounce that. What the hell server is that? Toast. It's called Toast now. Your server is Toast. US. Just wanted to give you huge praise for your total destruction of the forum posters complaining about the new VOA boss last week on the show. It was good to see someone with such entitled OMG Epics Now mindset get thrashed. Quite satisfying. I'm personally very glad to hear about that the new boss in there actually requires more than just falling on one's keyboard and thrashing about until purple falls out of him. Kudos to Blizzard and goodbye to entitled casuals. Can I also get a shout out to my friend Stack, listening in live for the first time today on my insistence? Yes, you can. Shout out so given. There's one more email that I would like to read before we go on. Unfortunately, I seem to have misplaced it, so it'll just have to wait. Right. Now, we talked a little bit last week about VOA being too hard. But there are other issues, I think, that surround VOA beyond simply the difficulty level. And that's two issues of this. What's the purpose? And is there indeed an issue with both bosses being in the same instance? It's funny, because I read a thread about this, and personally, my first reaction, of course, would be, stop pugging it, you nubs. Like, if you have a problem with VOA, then for God's sake, don't do it in a pug! Anyway, let me kind of describe the history behind this particular thread and complaint. The complaint was simply this, yeah? You've got VOA, which contains two bosses, one of which drops tier 7.5, and the other one which drops tier 8.5, yeah? Both have a large gap in difficulty, although none of them are particularly hard at all, yeah? There's no reason to believe that any of them are difficult. They're not. Let's face it, they're not difficult. And some people seem to believe that this instance particularly, and these bosses were designed with pugs in mind. Now, I don't know where they actually got that impression initially. I think it's because Archivan the Stonewatcher, as in the initial guy who was in there, because it used to only be one boss, was puggable. Yeah, and it was puggable from the outset. Now, the problem I've always had with VOA is that I can't really work out what it's for. It's an instance that you get access to by beating a PvP encounter. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, hey, PvPers, your reward is to go do a raid boss. If they wanted to do that, they'd already go and do a raid boss. I don't know. I suppose it is one of those attempts to try and bring the PvE and PvP games closer together. And I don't know if that's something that I actually agree with. I think there should be some segregation. Don't get me wrong. There was actually an announcement today, a blue post, that stated that mana regen would now work differently. Specifically, replenishment would now work differently in arenas. And this is not something they like doing, but it's a good solution for the time being until they work something else out. Because replenishment in arenas was just ridiculous. Apparently. So I've been told. I don't do arenas, I wouldn't know. But evidently that's what they thought. Now, this is something they've been trying to avoid. They specifically stated in previous blue posts that they did not want to do that kind of thing. They didn't want things to work completely differently in PvP as opposed to in PvE. They didn't want that kind of segregation. And obviously in the past they've wanted PvPers and PvEers to do different stuff. I don't know, maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just an unintended side effect. Again, another blue post said, quite simply, on the subject of the falling popularity of arenas, that people go where the epics are. And at the moment, raiding is where the epics are. But to be honest, if you want the really good quality stuff, you're probably going to have to go back to arenas now, because Ulduar's not face-rollable anymore. People went and did Nax and got the free stuff from there, because it was just easier than doing arenas. Arenas is constantly challenging, in some respects. I mean, it's not the kind of challenge that I personally get off on, but some people like it, and I'm not going to dispute that, or question its validity. So, I suppose you could view VOA as being yet another attempt to kind of mix things up a bit. Or maybe they just put it in there because they thought it would be cool. But the fallout of that was that you could acquire 3-piece Tier 7.5 or 3-piece Season 3, or of course Tier 7 and Season 2 if you were 10-manning it, by simply going in and killing a boss which is about as difficult as Hogger at level 60. It literally is. There is very little about that encounter that is in any way, shape or form hard. I cannot fathom why people would find that boss difficult. It's not. So it got a reputation for being puggable. And I suppose one of the other arguments was, oh, it's a puggable boss because it's not schedulable by a raid, because you don't know when it's going to be up. Well, yeah, I suppose you could make that argument, except for the fact that it only takes 5 minutes to kill. Meaning that you don't have to schedule it. You just look at it at either the start or the end of your raid. It's like, do we have control of Wintergrasp? Yes, no. If yes, go kill Archivon in 5 minutes flat and leave. It's not that hard. It's the same as Malagos. Like, we didn't schedule Malagos either. We just did it when we had the opportunity. So the scheduling issues that arise from the fact that you may not own Wintergrasp, therefore cannot go and do VOA, are kind of irrelevant. So I don't think you can really argue it's a puggable boss, or indeed was designed for pugs on that basis. Now, the issue comes up here. Emelon is now in the same instance, right? And what you've got is you've got pugs complaining that they should be in 2 separate instances. And they should be there on the justification that some pugs can only kill Archivon. And some pugs only want to kill Emelon. So those who want to kill both are kind of stuck in the middle, because they share the same raid ID. Yeah? So you've got to go back and kill it. Which, of course, is not entirely true. I mean, the way raid IDs work is simply that you get a raid ID and you go back into that same instance, right? If you, say, didn't start the raid, you go in and kill Archivon. Pugs not good enough to kill Emelon, you all disband. You can go back later with a group of other people as long as they're not saved to another VOA and go and kill Emelon, if you wish. Now, naturally, that's probably not the ideal way to do it, but to be honest, the ideal way to do it would be to kill both in the first place. Then neither of them are hard. The question simply is thus. It's got nothing to do with this raid reset malarkey. In my opinion, it's just an excuse. The question is this. If you want tier 8.5, should you have to be in a good group to get it? And the obvious answer is yes! I mean, go on. Let's find out where this stuff drops, right? Because I can't remember the specific place? Let's find this out, yeah? Let's go and look at Wowhead. Let's all go on a little trip. Bring up your web browser, go look at Wowhead. Now, we're looking specifically for items, yeah? And where they come from. Now, let's talk about, like, the Conqueror's Siegebreaker Battle Plate, which is tier 8.5, as I recall, and it comes, of course, from a token. And that token is the Breastplate of the Wayward Protector. Now, this drops from, let's find out, it's actually in the Cache of Winter, which I assume is probably Thorin. Maybe. Let's just double check. Yes, sorry, Hodir, yes. You get it for killing Hodir. That's where some of the stuff is, yeah? In Heroic, you can get the breastplates, yeah? That's what can drop in there, these chest pieces for 8.5. And in the 10-man, you get the tier 8 leggings, all different kinds. Now, as I recall, that's relatively far into the instance. I'm just looking at the map here, and you can clearly see that it's in the Halls of Winter, which I believe you can go and kill straight after you kill XT002. Now, one way or the other, it's going to be a hard fight. It's certainly nowhere near as easy as Emelon. That I can guarantee you. So I suppose the question therein lies, should you be able to get all of this stuff from Emelon when it takes so long to get it from the other bosses in Ulduar, the challenging ones? Well, obviously this stuff's here to stay. Now, I personally totally disagree with the concept of VOA. I think the idea... Actually, I think it's worse for the PvPers. Like, the genuine PvPers who actually work to get, like, their Furious stuff. You can now get this Furious stuff from VOA, of all places. And you could get the Deadly Gladiators, the Tier 3. Yeah? The Season 3 or Tier... I don't know what it is. The Tier 3 PvP gear. You could get that from VOA. The first boss, which is just easy. For God's sake, I've got pieces of that. I don't even PvP. And what's the rating requirement on that if you were to get it normally? I mean, you'd have to actually be good at it to get it. So I don't get that. I think it's way, way worse for the PvPers. And as regards to the puggability of it and the complaints, oh, it should be 2 separate instances, like, no. Actually, I think this is a statement. And this statement says, sorry, we made a puggable instance that dropped really good gear for no apparent reason whatsoever other than to... I assume it must have been to appease entitled casuals. I can't think of who else would be pleased by this entire thing. You know, people think that, oh, well, I really suck at the game, but I should be able to get the same stuff as them because I paid the same amount. That's the kind of people that VOA was aimed at. Now, Emelon is a bit of a say no to that kind of attitude. It's not hard by any stretch, but what it does do is ensure that pugs are going to have to kind of stick it out, and are going to have to be reasonably good. Now, if you want to go and attempt VOA and you want to kill Emelon, and you're not a good enough pug to do it, then consider exactly why you joined that pug in the first place. You should be able to get a relatively reasonable impression of how good these players are by simply looking at the composition of the group. Now, you can assume safely that pugs suck, right? Pugs generally suck from the outset. So if you want to guarantee an Emelon kill, go with your guild. Why would you go with a pug? And that's the complaint right there. It's like, oh, well, I want 2 separate raid IDs because of this and this and this. Well, why don't you just join a pug that was good enough to kill him to begin with? And make sure that you know that. Ask from the outset. It's like, who has done it before? You can tell by looking at the achievements. Yeah, that's one of the useful things about achievements. You can tell how many people have done it. No one in your group's done Emelon? Have a look at the other stuff. Have they killed Malagos? If not, you probably don't want to be doing Emelon with these guys. I mean, you do get an opportunity. Let's face it, you've got like 5 minutes of trash before you get there. You've got ample opportunity to look at the composition of the group. It's somewhat your responsibility. And yeah, I agree, it sucks when you get in a pug and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and these guys suck. Yeah, they're just absolutely all over the place. Scrubs. That sucks, but some of the responsibility for finding good players is on you. And you should always assume that people are going to suck by default until proven otherwise. That's why you get in guilds. Now, VOA being puggable the first time, whether or not that was actually supposed to happen, I don't know. But it was all on this first tier of content that was all pretty easy. Yeah? The only challenging elements of the initial wave of content in Wrath of the Lich King were Malagos and Sartharian 3 Drakes. All of the other stuff was really easy. VOA included. Now this is a step up. Now if you want to stay on tier 1 of content, then you stay on tier 1 of content. That is entirely up to you. That is your personal decision. If you don't feel you're good enough, then don't go any further. However, whining and complaining about getting it split into 2 separate instances, I mean, for God's sake, how many more do you want? We're going to get to, like, the end of the expansion, there'll be, like, 4 separate instances for this damn place. It'll be horrendous. No, it's a silly idea. You don't go into instances with people that can't finish them. That's just silly. Why would you do such a thing? This is a blatant and obvious message that says you can't face roll this instance anymore. And if you have a problem with that, then go join a guild. Or at least get into a capable group of people that you know can actually kill it. It's as simple as that. It's a dumb instance to begin with. I don't know why it's there. ML1's at least a little bit harder, but not by much. And for God's sake, all it consists of is stay out of the lightning and change targets every now and again. Hard mode, guys. Really. So difficult. You better not try Tetris, or Peggle for that matter, because both are more difficult. Incidentally, Peggle roll, Peggle loot system, best thing ever. I'm trying to convince my guild to use it. Go check it out. If you go to curse.com, there is now a Peggle mod. Yes, indeed, a Peggle mod for WoW, and it has a loot system and talent tables. I'm not kidding. You can challenge people in the raid to one shot of Peggle in order to decide who gets the loot. It's the best thing ever. Go check it out. But yeah, less whining about VOA, please. It's not real content anyway. And if you really want your tier 8.5, then get in a good group and go get it. We don't need any of this artificial rubbish to cater to people that don't understand the concept of good groups and guilds. Raids should be done in guilds. That's how it was supposed to happen, with people you know and people you enjoy playing with. Shouldn't be an exercise in frustration in which you might get loot at the end, with people you don't know. That's just silly. It's supposed to be a social game. My name is TotalBiscuit and you listen to Blue Plz on WoW Radio. We're doing the Illusion of Choice when we come back after the break. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Let's face it, everywhere you go, you see adverts for Ventrilo server providers. With so many to choose from, how do you make the decision about which is right for you and your guild? To help you with the decision, we brought in WoW Radio's very own bleeding-edge hardcore raiders to show you which provider the world's top players trust.
Loot the stupid car hound!
No. Tank it over there! You're setting the raid on fire!
Someone pulled ads, guys!
Oh, for God's sakes! Heal the tank! Heal the tank!
Hey, guys, it's okay to DI the tank, right?
Why are you smiting and not healing?
Is that a halibut? Are you DPSing with a halibut?
Leave George alone! You'll hurt his feelings!
You named that halibut?
Guys, I think we're wiping.
What gave you that idea?
Well, we're all standing in the graveyard arguing. UGT Ventrilo servers, the only choice for the elite of the elite. Hi, I'm TotalBiscuit, the best and sexiest mage on the planet. When you're like me, you don't have downtime between raids and promotional photo shoots. That's why I use UGT Ventrilo servers. I don't have to get my hands dirty trying to fix a broken server because it was never broken to begin with. UGT servers provide crystal clear voice communication with excellent hands-on support to make sure your server is always up and running. Not only that, their prices are so low, I was able to use the extra money to buy this £32 salmon. What? You didn't think I was going to be outdone by Dustin, did you? Hey guys, want to run some BRD? Get your premium quality Ventrilo server from UGTservers.com. Be the best. Well, second best. Yes, indeed, folks. Listen to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. I've just found the best album ever. It's a guy with a pet bear. This is the best thing. I'm going to post it in the IRC channel for you so you can have a look at it. It's called, I think it's just called like Man and His Bear. It's Win. It's like a real-life Grizzly Adams. It's got a little bear, tiny little bear thing, and then it gets much bigger. It's like this giant bear. It's Win. Go check it out. It's in the IRC channel, MMOIRC.com, # WOW Radio. Alternatively, click the chat button on the top of the screen on WCRadio.com. The bear's in the swimming pool. That's not a bear picture. Where's the bear? There's the bear. The bear's at the table. That looks like a Photoshop. Seriously. Is that really real? Wow. This is all bears all the time. It's the best bear album I've ever seen. I want a bear now. Can I have a bear? My wife's going to hate me. It's like, yeah, we had a dog and it ripped the place up, so what you want to do is get a bear, because clearly that'll be better behaved. Anyway, time for your choice. The illusion of choice. You don't really get to choose, I just kind of make it up. I'm going to check the mailbag to see if there's anything interesting for our last topic of this particular show. And thanks ever so much for listening today, guys. Big audience, always a good thing. Do like that. Massive fan. Hopefully there'll be an even bigger audience tomorrow for the show with Insidia. It's Pug, it's myself and Cadwalian interviewing Mech and Poptees at 8 o'clock, I believe, yes. 8 o'clock GMT, and that would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. Oh, yes. Now, I do have an email here that I would like to cover. This is from Christian DeVoe, also known as Deathmain, level 74 Drain IDK on ANRUS. Guild Corps of Discovery, and he says this: TB, I've been asking this question to all the WoW gods for a long time. Really? Who, exactly? All the WoW gods. Okay. I have been around for a while, but I've noticed that the game has changed in some ways. Well, of course it has. It's been through 4 years worth of expansions. What do you expect? Do you feel that the game has changed in ways in regards to PvE players in specifically raiding? I remember the days of MC, AQ20/40, where there's a lot of excitement, a challenge, so have it. I wonder if it has bothered you that the days of old school challenges are gone. Please give my regards to the rest of the crew and all those on ANRUS. Right. What you really got to watch out for here, and I've fallen for this myself from time to time, is the rose-tinted spectacles. Let me make this clear. Molten Core was not hard. Molten Core was not very good. Molten Core sucked in every respect, except for, like, Geddon and Ragnaros. Those were the two interesting fights. Molten Core was horrible. Anyone who actually believes they like that, you're deluded. Seriously, you're just remembering it through rose-tinted spectacles. That's the only good explanation for actually liking this particular encounter. Ugh. Horrendous. Totally horrendous. So, as regards to your old school content, you've got to watch out for falling into that trap. There is some good stuff, right? Don't get me wrong. And I think this argument would have been a lot more valid. Indeed, I've made a similar argument before Ulduar came out, because I felt Blizzard had lost their way. Evidently they haven't. It was just a momentary glitch. They just tripped over a little bit. And they stumbled, and now they're back on their feet with Ulduar. Ulduar is quintessentially old school raiding. It's got some great mechanics. And it's an evolution on a lot of the stuff we've already seen. You can't compare stuff in BWL and AQ40 and MC to stuff in Ulduar. Ulduar's just so much more advanced. And I don't just mean in difficulty, because it is now, yeah? Just bear this in mind, yeah? Difficulty doesn't stay the same, yeah? Blackwing Lair is still not a hard instance. Not anymore. Like, if you look at the mechanics behind Nefarian, who at the time was considered to be rock-solid hard, he's a walk in the park. There are 5-man bosses that do more complicated stuff. It's just that simple. Things change. People evolve and learn. The reason MC was so hard is because it was alien to people at the time. It's not anymore. MC is a joke now. Seriously. I did it with like 15 people in level 60 gear with level 60 talents. We waltzed through it. We killed Ragnaros one shot and only one guy was wearing fire res gear. It's not hard anymore. It never was, really. It's just because we didn't know anything. It's like, yes, trigonometry is very difficult when you don't know anything about trigonometry. If you know a lot about trigonometry, then all of a sudden it's quite easy. It applies to all walks of life. If you have that kind of experience, then it's not going to be challenging anymore. Is that reasonable? Yes. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's the way things are supposed to work. Now, yeah, there were some challenging fights. There are still some challenging fights in AQ40. Blackwing Lair wouldn't say so. Veilstraz, nowhere near as challenging anymore just because the power creep. Yep. As in, our characters have gone up in power. If you went back there with level 60s with Wrath talents, you'd notice that our powers have increased. They are power overwhelming, one might say. Razor Gore may be challenging because that doesn't really make a difference in there, but I think dealing with the ads in Razor Gore, of course, is going to be a hell of a lot easier at this level. If you were, say, level 60, just kind of like Arcanist Belt is doing, which is fun. Admittedly, we've obviously suspended Arcanist Belt for the time being because we're busy doing Ulduar. That's what you've got to remember. It's the same people that bashed on TBC rating, saying TBC rating wasn't as good as vanilla. Why? Explain that to me. Because I did both. I did all of vanilla, and I did the vast majority of TBC. And I didn't notice a big difference. There was an advancement there. I mean, even some of the stuff in Karazhan was more advanced than Blackwing Lair. There's a lot of interesting mechanics there. Raiding has evolved and brought on all of these different things. Like, Tank and Spank just doesn't exist anymore. You don't have Tank and Spank. Not anymore. It just doesn't happen. Are there any Tank and Spank bosses in Ulduar? Well, Blizzard certainly claim no, and I certainly haven't found one yet. Razor Scale ain't Tank and Spank. Flame Leviathan certainly ain't Tank and Spank. Now there's Ignis. XT certainly isn't, and I certainly doubt anything beyond that is. They've completely evolved past the need for Tank and Spank fights with a couple of gimmick abilities. Because people just will walk over that now. It's too easy. So yeah, just bear in mind, as we increase in player power, as in the power of our characters, the talents that we have and the skills that we have at our disposal, so do we increase in the power of the mind. Woo! Mind bullets, and so forth. That doesn't mean you can levitate that bag of Cheetos from across the room, you lazy bastard. Go and walk over there, burn some calories. No, you can't do that, but the power of your mind has increased since raiding there. You've learned to do more, and you've learned about mechanics like that, so you're not so surprised by it anymore. And for God's sake, remember wiping on Luciphron for 3 weeks. That's embarrassing when you look back at it. There's no way that could ever happen now. Luciphron's a joke. All you do is dispel, and that's it. And yet, for some reason, it was hard in those days, you know? It was difficult. Not anymore. So I'd say just bear in mind that a lot of people do wax lyrical, myself included, for the good old days. But bear in mind why it was fun and challenging. It wasn't because it was actually hard. Some of the stuff was, but the vast majority of it wasn't. And we've learned a lot more since then. Why you were finding this difficult is because it was new, and why you were finding this fun and challenging is because you were with a bunch of friends. Treasure those memories. Don't try and relive them. That's the way a lot of people ruin those good memories. They try and relive the good old days. They're gone, right? They're done. Just try and enjoy the new content. Ulduar is a big step in the right direction. I do hope they keep making those steps. I mean, I expect to see a 5-man next, then maybe another raid. Whether it's going to be Icecrown? I don't think so. I think Icecrown will be the last one this time around. I think there'll be one more before that. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in the old world. I make a prediction right there. Perhaps it'll be Grimbat Hall. Or maybe we'll just get a bunch of little ones. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But just don't try and relive those memories too much. It's okay to do it from every now and again. Go raid in a casual guild or whatever. Don't be too serious about it. Because I think you're going to end up disappointed. The stuff wasn't actually that good. It was alright for the time, don't get me wrong. But compared to now, not even close. Not even close. So yeah, you wanted my opinion, you've had it. My name is TotalBiscuit, and you've been listening to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. It's time for some shout-outs. If you want to do that, you can tweet me, yes you can, on twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. Alternatively, you can send me a PM on IRC or email me at themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. People that say, illusion of choice, achievements talk about achievements. Please, that one word does not constitute a topic. For God's sake, there's like 50 different things I could say on achievements, and all of them would be negative. I've done achievements to death. We don't need that anymore. And that's not a shout-out anyway. So yeah, send your shout-outs to me, TotalBiscuit on IRC, TotalBiscuit on Twitter, or themurloc@gmail.com via the method of emailing, which I hope most of you should have become relatively competent at now. Certainly hope so, at any rate. Anyway, shout-out to Dunkirk, who says specifically, Ulduar is awesome. So shout-out to that. A shout-out to Spanish Dolphins, but what is that? People think it's funny to be random. It's not. It's not funny. Spanish dolphins with bananas. Oh, how hilariously random I am. Haha. No. Hey TB, I want to shout out to Zanzir and Eniv on Area 52 and myself Gitty. Shout out to Gavin, a shout out to the PopCap. If they're listening, the creators of Peggle for forever removing boring fights. If you start playing Peggle in the middle of boss encounters, then your guild is terrible for letting you do it. A shout out to Boxy for being so fine. If that's some 4chan reference, then it just needs to go away. A shout out to the dedicated levelers in Arcanist Belt, and a selfish one to me for not having a life, and is soon done with my second alt in AB, that's from AAMO. You are hardcore. A shout out to Peggle for bringing me back to WoW. God, what? Really? Oh, no. A shout out to Korgal EU for being the worst server ever. It's on Police Red. A shout out to Ahaim on Storm Reaver US for making her first character. A shout out to my girlfriend who... wait a minute, you've just sent 2... Stop sending 2 shout outs. Your people are horrible and evil. He said flights, not fights. You're a liar, Thursday. You're terrible. A shout out to Blanzin the Paladin from Homer Rush EU. To Dre, I miss her and her daily eternal fires. That sounds like some kind of crazy breakup which involved reagents. A.k.a. Flashmend, proud member of Arcanist Belt. A shout out to my brother and sister, Torrens, for the herd. Oh, dear. I like a nice bit of prime rib, to be honest, at this point. I can have a shout out to No More Play on Boulder Fist EU, please. That's from Avatus. A shout out to Bejeweled for being better than Peggle. That is a lie, good sir. A lie. That's from Jura. It is a big lie and horrible. Shout out to all the WC Radio staff for being awesome. That's from Zinke. I thank you. That's very kind of you. A shout out to Motor Silence and Dalawan US for killing Freya last night. Congratulations. Let's quickly check the Twitter before we leave. The Twitter. What does the Twitter have to say? Yes! Can I have a shout out to my girlfriend who is hooked on WoW using the comics as a gateway drug of sorts. That's from Fatal Strike. And a shout out to Dreagnus for being a complete slacker and giving up way too soon. That's from Apples Now Elite. A shout out to Ashes of Boulder Fist US, that's from Zard9, and Undomitable on Sarama US, that's from Carathon. And ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely done for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. You've been fantastic as always. Join us tomorrow for our first evening with an Uber Guild. It's Insidia Mechapoptis on the Almighty Pug with myself and Cadwallian. It'll be great. It's on at 8 p.m. GMT tomorrow. You can always catch the archive if you miss it, and indeed catch any of our other shows that you've missed on iTunes or WCRadio.com's show page and RSS feeds. Don't forget to rate and review us using iTunes. It's always appreciated. Thank you very much for your support, and it's good night from me. You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz, a show that airs exclusively on WCRadio.com on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. EST. You can check out our archives on our website at WCRadio.com and subscribe to our RSS feeds. Don't forget to rate and review us using iTunes, and if you wish to